Hey, welcome in, everybody. Good to see everyone here. Some people floating in. Got my last minute, had to shut my closet so it looks decent and turn my cool blue light on there. David here. All right, David. Hey, man, I hope your fingers are doing okay. You said you smashed or hurt a whole bunch of them in pickleball. Was it your left hand or your right hand? Either way, it's kind of terrible for guitar playing, but I feel for you. Zach's here, all right, from Venice, California. Cool. Peter, all right. What's up and good day? From Sydney, Australia. Lisa, all right, from Michigan. People everywhere. Steve in New Hampshire, all right. Russ from Vegas. Cool. Oh, let's see what Russ says. Thanks for your mentioning to search YouTube for one chord backing tracks to hear the modes as you play them. Never even thought of searching for something like that. Yeah, it seems like YouTube has everything if you search for it. Like any song, most songs are up there now. Anyway, all right, cool. Truchas from the Rockies, Colorado Rockies, I'm supposing. Danny, cool, all right. Russ, yeah, right on. It's my spaceman playing electric guitar in outer space. I wonder if, since there's no air in space, I don't know if we would hear anything if we were out there playing, but King 50, hey, from Northern Nevada, right on. All right, David's getting back. Left hand fretting hand. Oh, man, that's terrible, Dave. Erg. Good. Yep, using the picking exercises for some PT for those fingers. Good deal, David. All right, cool. And then Ken here from Texas. Richard, right on. All right. All right, we're going to be working on Lydian today. This is our halfway point through the mode series. There's 7 modes. I'm doing 2 weeks on each one. We've already knocked out Ionian, 2 weeks on that, 2 weeks on Dorian, 2 weeks on Phrygian. Lydian is the halfway point. So after today, we're on to the second half of the mode series. So the Lydian pattern, everybody, what I want you to do is print out your sheet that's underneath the video box in YouTube. If you expand the text box, you'll see a blue URL link for the curriculum. Print that out. There's 2 pages. Again, I'm lazy on replace my printer ink, but I've got green dots that I highlighted with my green highlighter for the root notes. In your sheet, everybody will have a yellow neck diagram with black and red dots. The red dots are the root notes for all that. Now, last week we talked about Phrygian. We're moving on to Lydian's, the 4th mode. Okay, couple things. Every mode is based off of the chord position of that same key. So in other words, in the key of C major, we did the first mode was C Ionian, goes with the first chord, a C major chord. And you can play any C major chord you want, doesn't matter. The Dorian mode, if we're playing it in the key of C, but playing the second chord in the key of C, which is D, that's a minor chord, D minor. That goes with the second mode in the key of C. Starts on the D note. Plays the same notes as C major, but focuses on D as the root. The third mode we did is Phrygian. It's based on the third chord in the key of C, which is E minor. And any E minor you want, doesn't matter. The third mode starts on the third note in the C major scale, which is E, and then you got the patterns we did last 2 weeks. It has a darker sound than the Dorian. And it is minor because the third chord in the key, every major scale's third chord is minor. And then you can also tell whether a scale or a mode is major or minor by the third note in the pattern from the root. The root will always be the number 1 or R. The second note is usually a major 2 or a whole step up from the root. And then occasionally we'll have a flat 2, which is what we did in Phrygian. And then the third degree, folks, if it's a flat third, it's minor. That's because the third chord is minor, or whatever chord you're playing that mode, the Phrygian over, should be a minor chord because the scale has a minor third. We want the trick here, folks, is to have notes that sound good over the chords. And the best notes that sound good over a chord are the notes of the chord. So when you're playing your scale, try to use your ear to find the notes of that E minor as you're playing it. Okay, now we're moving on today to the fourth mode, which is the Lydian. Goes with the fourth chord in whatever key we're doing. We're doing the key of C major. Okay, so what's the fourth note in C major? What's the fourth chord? Can anyone tell me what the fourth note is? And then on top of that, tell me if you can answer whether that chord is major or minor. Okay, and while you're thinking, contemplating that, there you go, Richard. Yes, and Richard, is it F major or F minor? The fourth chord in every major scale is always F major, is major. Yes, Russ, exactly. Yes, Richard, yes, yes. You people are on the ball. Cool. Real quick, let me read what Zane says. Hey, Dave, just received a copy of your Monster Scales Modes book today. It looks like a good read. Cool, man. I hope you enjoy it. It's just an encyclopedia of every scale. I have them all written in the key of A. Like what we're doing is working on our modes in the key of C and relating them to the key of C, at least on the neck diagram page. When we do the second page, I give you it against the B note. So we actually change to the key of B Lydian and hear it against an open string. Okay. I know it might be a little confusing for some folks about why we're changing keys, but it's just because on the second page with the tablature, I'm trying to use an open string as a pedal tone while we play the scale on one string, because it's kind of good to know your scale, not just in these patterns up and down on the fretboard, like that, but also be able to play it on one string. From wherever you're starting at, and then be able to do the whole steps and half steps, see the scale, and that way helps you understand it better. Piano players think in wholes and half steps a lot because they're just playing one long line of notes linearly from left to right, low to high. On our guitars, we've got 6 little pianos. If you think about it, each string is like almost a 2-octave piano, okay? And a piano is many octaves. I think it's like 8 to 10 octaves. I'm not exact. Depends how many keys are on it. But there's a lot of octaves in the piano. And a lot of our guitar strings overlap notes. So that's also a little confusing too, because you can play that high E note on the 2nd string 5th fret, or the 3rd string 7th, 9th fret, or 4th string 14th fret, etc. So it makes it a little confusing to understand some of the theory. But once you get over that hurdle, it's actually what's neat about guitars. It gives you several ways to play the same scale, rather than if on piano we could only play it, if we're running the scale up and down, we could only do it one way on, left to right with the intervals. You'd have to learn them in whole steps and half steps. On guitar, though, we could play a pattern, a Lydian this way. Okay. Or we could play it. Gives us, when I do 3 notes per string, gives me a little extra real estate. Oopsie. Oopsie. One more time up and down. Back down. Has a neat tone to it. So just like Richard and Russ said, hey, Second Chance Bands here. Hello, Marianne. So the fourth chord, like Richard and Russ said, the fourth chord in the key of C is F major, and it's major, okay? So the fourth mode, Lydian, that has a major quality to it. So if we look at this, the little diagram I've got up here, let's play the pattern, get the sound in our ears for a minute, and then we'll talk about some of the theory I have up in the text box. And I've got some song examples that we're all familiar with, or most of them you'll be familiar with, that use Lydian. Okay, it's always good to have a little reference there. And then I made a little backing track with a drum loop, and I just played some rhythm guitar over it with a Lydian rhythm. And we're going to go over that too. So let's take a look at that first pattern. Okay, we're still in the key of C major, but excuse me, drop some papers here. We're still in the key of C major, but we're going to focus on the fourth note in C as being the root, the F note. So as you play that pattern number at the 12th fret, you're going to notice that it looks just like the Phrygian pattern we did last week. In fact, look at this, folks. I've got Phrygian sitting right here, and then I'll compare them right next to the Lydian. Okay, if you look at the top diagram right here and this one, they're identical. The only difference is the green in my diagram, your root notes, the green dots on mine, the red dots on yours, are on a different note. But the pattern is the same shape. Interesting. See, so there's more to the modes, folks, than just learning how to play the scale up and down. Okay, and the mode book that Zane was talking about that I wrote a bunch of years ago, it's got a cool cover to it too. It's a lot like my Killer Pentatonics book, except instead of it having robot fingers, android fingers on the neck, it has serpent heads with a little tongue sticking out for the fingers. It's a pretty cool looking cover. But anyway, that book just shows how to play the patterns up and down. I think taking one-on-one lessons with an instructor that knows more about the modes and shows you how to apply them would be a good thing to do. I can help you with that. Some of our other instructors on Guitar Tricks can help you with that too. And watching these little YouTube lessons that I'm doing here, which, by the way, are sponsored by Guitar Tricks. They're having me come up here and give away an hour time for you guys. So it's free for everybody, so you don't have to pay for it. Yay. Okay, so, oops, you know what? I just noticed something too on my neck diagrams here for my 3-note per string Lydian. I forgot to highlight a note. Let me do that real quick. Bam. Okay, got it. Okay, so here's the deal, folks. There's more to the modes than just playing the pattern up and down. It's not going to sound like magic by just running the scale up and down. You've got to kind of be aware of where the root notes are, the notes we're focusing on, okay? Now, as you play the pattern at the 12th fret, if you did your homework and worked on the Phrygian pattern, it's the same thing. So everybody should be able to do this by now. But we're making F the note. So really, when you play the pattern, if you start on another note besides the F, you kind of take away from that sound. So if we start with the F, the green dot, don't worry about playing the 12th fret until we finish with it. So we're going to go 13, 15. Then the 5th string goes 12, 14, 15. 4th string, same thing, 12, 14, 15. 3rd string is 12, 14. 2nd string is 12, 13, 15. Top string is also 12, 13, 15. And then if I end on the root there, you start to hear a little bit of the sound of the scale. Listen to it again. Backwards. Okay. Sounds a lot like the major scale, but there's something special about this. There's only one note that's different between Lydian and Ionian, or Lydian and the major scale. Can anyone tell me what that one note difference is? If you think about the numeric names, everybody, okay, you can feel free to type the answer if you know it. If you don't, just pay attention, okay? Up here in the text box, it says Lydian's the 4th mode, okay? It starts on the 4th degree, the 4th note of the major scale. In this case, we're in the key of C. Richard, exactly, it's the sharp 4, okay? Numerically, see, this is where it comes in handy to know the numeric name of the notes, because that helps you to understand what's different and what's not different. Okay. Numerically, the scale notes are 1, 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, 6, 7. If you know your major scale, like we did 6 weeks ago, the major scale is just all the pure notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. None of them are flat or sharp. That gives you the major scale. So if I play the F major scale in the 12th, 13th, 14th, and 15th fret area, it sounds like this. I'll just do one octave, all right? It sounds like do, re, mi. I'm not a good singer. Don't laugh, please. And in the bands I play in, I don't sing. I just focus on guitar. See, it sounds like that. If you do the major scale backwards, it's that Christmas holiday song, Joy to the World. With the rhythm of it's changed to sound like the Christmas song. That's just the major scale descending from the root note down to the next root note. Okay, now those numerically, those notes are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Or 1 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Listen to this though. The Lydians has a sharp 4, so it's going to go 1, 2, 3, sharp 4. I'm going to raise the 4 1 fret. 1, 2, 3. Here's your 4. We're going to play that note. Listen how cool that sounds. 1, 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, it's got a pretty cool sound to it. Okay, it's interesting. Now, if you think about this, folks. Oh, Jim's here. Right on, right on. Chuck, cool. All right, Chuck's here. Right on. Chuck, you're in the Blues Boot Camp class Guitar Tricks is doing that I'm hosting. Good to see you here, Chuck. So, lost my thought. Let me get it back. Oh, yeah. All right. So you got to think about those magic notes that make it different. So I'm going to play over when I play a solo, which I'll do in a little bit. I'm going to try to highlight that sharp 4 because that's the magic note that makes it sound unique. Now, before we get into the 3-note per string pattern and the chords and some other stuff, let's just keep going down the line here. Read the rest of the text so we get all that covered. Okay. The second paragraph here says the notes of the parent chord, since we're doing F Lydian, is F major. We want to focus on not just that magic sharp 4 note, because that note's actually not in the chord, in the parent chord, the F major. But that note puts a little grease on the wheel. It sounds kind of cool in there to create some tension. The notes that sound good to resolve, though, are the root note of F, which is F, and then the 3rd and 5th. And then if you don't know what the root 3rd and 5th are, I got it right there. It says root 3rd, 5th equals FAC. So an F major chord uses an F as the root, A is the 3rd, and then C is the 5th. Okay? Are the gold notes to focus on, while the other scale tones add color. Okay? And especially that sharp 4. Okay, this mode has an overall major tonality because the 3rd degree is major, not minor. It has that happy sound on it, not dark like we did with Dorian or Phrygian. Okay. Now, the sharp 4 could also be called something else, but then we're not really talking modes when we call it something else. Does anyone know what that something else is? What would be another word for the sharp 4? Now, I know we got some smart folks out there. Yes, Richard. All right. Richard's on the ball. The flat 5. Okay. The sharp 4 and a flat 5 are actually, yes, second chance. Marianne, you got it too. Good job. The flat 5, sharp 4, it's the same note. But usually when we call it a flat 5, we're usually playing it in a minor context, like in the blues, or like spy music kind of has that. Usually you're in a minor key when the flat 5 comes in. But when we call it sharp 4, it's usually implying that there's a major 3rd and a 5th natural. We don't typically, when you play a scale, you don't want to use the same number twice or the same letter twice. That's what the sharps and flats are for. So we wouldn't go root, 2nd, 3rd, flat 5, 5, because then we end up not having a number 4 in there. Okay? So that's where the sharp 4 comes in. You want to have a number for each note in the scale at each digit. Okay. Yep, second chance band. Yeah, it's the enharmonic equivalent is the musical term for when you call something when it has two names, like a C sharp could also be called D flat. So D flat is the enharmonic equivalent of C sharp and vice versa. All right, David's saying backing track. Oh, backing track a second. Oh, backing tracking a second. If sharp 4 is what produced the Lydian tonality, what were the color notes of Phrygian again, for example? How many were there other than 1, 3, and 5? Well, David, yeah, if you were here last 2 weeks, Phrygian has has 4 notes that are changed, and none of them are sharped. The 4 notes that are changed are flatted. It's a 1, flat 2, flat 3, 4, 5 doesn't change. 6 is flatted, 7 is flatted. So you got a boatload of flats in that one. And when you flat the 3 and when you flat the 2, well, you flat the 3, it's going to give you the minor sound. Flatting the 2 gives you just a half step above the root. You know, remember we talked about this? Gives you that kind of mysterious, wicked sound, right? Also, having a flat 6 makes the flat 6 is a half step above the 5th, so you can go. You get more when you play a half step above the note, the target note, it always kind of creates like a moody, dark sound. Okay, it creates a little tension that needs to be resolved to the chord tone. Okay, but in the Lydian, we don't have that. The only note that's changed is the sharp 4. So there you go, Dave. Those stories are very those modes are very contrasting. So you hit over the E Phrygian. A dark sound to it. But when we think about it, the same exact notes, but making F the root. Okay, so you can hear the difference. I'm going to play over a little backing track I created right before our lesson in a few minutes. But you want to think about those chord tones. There's some other questions popping up here. Let me just double check here. Yeah, Dave, I got it. Backtracking. Yeah, no worries, no worries. And then always exploring, saying beginner here. Thanks for doing these live stream. Yeah, no problem. My pleasure. I know some of this always exploring might be above your level of proficiency where you're at in your guitar playing, but definitely, hopefully you're a Guitar Tricks member. Work through, if you're just starting out, work through those 2 fundamental courses we have on the site. Fundamentals 1 and 2 are really good. I know it's basic stuff, but folks, don't think you can skip the basics and you're going to become a great guitar player. You need to learn the simple stuff, how to change chords effectively, how to play, strum with the beat. Okay. All those are important things that are taught in fundamentals level 1 and 2. So check that out. Always exploring. Hopefully you remember. If you're not, reach out to Guitar Tricks, because I know they've got they always have some deal going on. I know they've got a money back guarantee. I don't know exactly what their deals are at this time, because they're always coming up with different ones and promotions. But reach out to them if you're not a member. If you are, check out the fundamentals level 1 and 2 to get you started. Whether you're playing acoustic or electric, the fundamentals 1 and 2 is a must need. And then once you're through those, then we've got rock level 1 and 2, blues level 1 and 2, country level 1 and 2, and acoustic guitar level 1 and 2. But please don't skip the basics and think you can just jump right into the rock stuff and get it, because you'll have a lot of holes in your playing that will come back to haunt you. Okay. And I'm only speaking from experience, folks, because I've been teaching for a lot of years, probably about 35 years or more, a lot of students. And I see some of them, not all of them, but some of them I can tell by the way they play and their attitude that they had skipped the basics and just worked on a couple songs that they wanted to do. And they've got a lot of holes in their playing that are holding them back from being a better player. So me as the guitar instructor, when I see that, I talk to them about stepping a few steps back to take many steps forward. Okay. So it really helps. And I see a big difference too. So there you go. David's saying, so all 4 give you the mode color for Phrygian and 1 for Lydian. Interesting. Yeah, David, but it's just trying to play the modes over 1 chord, like I mentioned last week, because I got an email from someone wanting to know some more chord progressions that were more elaborate than just 1 or 2 chords. And it's like, that's not what the modes are about, because it's basically trying to solo over 1 or 2 chords that go back and forth. Just the backing track doesn't have to be a complicated million chords, because then it's really not the modes. The mode is focusing on 1 tonality, and then the chords kind of pivot off of that, but they always come back to that. So like with the Phrygian, folks, we were doing the E, that's your power, your center of gravity. Then I was playing the chord above it, F. Then the chord below E is D. Remember, they have to be chords in the same key. I was just playing power chords. Just something simple that just stays with the E, and then that's where you get the. So you get the sound that way by focusing on 1. So check this out, folks. Last sentence up here, and then we're going to talk about some rhythm guitar that you can play by yourself or record it and then practice this over. It says F Lydian can be played over this chord change, among others. Okay, I'm going to give you some song examples in a sec, and then a couple other rhythms to play the Lydian over. But if you do an F to a G over F, and just back and forth, I'll show you real quick. Let me clean up my tone here. That's a good lead guitar sound, but for playing rhythm, I'm going to go back to this one. Okay, so an F chord, you can play just a regular F chord. And then the G over F, what that means is that you're playing a G chord, but F is the bass note. So if you play an F bar chord, and you keep the F on the bass, and then play the open 4, 3, and 2 string, that's part of a G chord, right? You know, when you play the cowboy G chord, strings 4, 3, 2 are part of that chord, but you don't even need a finger on them. So if we just played 4, 3, 2 by itself, okay, that's still a G chord. It's got all 3 notes that make the G chord, a G, B, and D. G, B, and D. So if I play that with the F and the bass, hear that sound? That's a Lydian sound right there. So I got F. Then I just take off my chord and hold the bass note. Okay. And then notice too that my chords play with those flat 2, flat 3, flat 6, and 7 of Phrygian. Remember we went, well, the root note, then I play the flat 2 chord, which is F, back to the E, and then I play the flat 7 chord, back to the E. That's for Phrygian. For Lydian, we want to have a chord or somehow work in that sharp 4. So in the F Lydian, it's the 4 14th fret on string 5. Does anyone know what letter that note is? What's that 14th fret on string 5? That's the sharp 4. So I'm going to want to find a chord that has the B in it. Ah, shoot, I just said it. Darn it. All right. I know someone will get it anyway. But the F chord doesn't have a B in it. The G chord has a B in it. So see hear that sound? That's the Lydian sound right there. And I'm picking them hybrid style. I'm picking the 6th string with my pick, and I'm picking strings 4, 3, 2 with my middle, ring, and pinky. And then I just take it off and hold the bass note and then pluck the same strings. Any 2 chords that are major, it works. See, check this out. Let's talk about a few songs here for a sec. Answer a question real quick here. Zach Lee saying your intro was the song Van Halen and talking about love. What mode was that? That was that. It's not Lydian, actually. I would have been smart for me to play something Lydian, but I'm going to do that right now for you, Zach. Ain't Talking About Love is in A minor, and Ed's chords go A minor to G. It's kind of like an Aeolian type of sound. Also, because his riff is A minor, then he's got an F major triad. So those chords, A minor, F major, G, that clearly is an Aeolian type of rhythm. We're going to talk about that in a few weeks when we get to Aeolian. And I'm going to give you some songs that obviously are using the Aeolian as well. Yes, David, you hit the nail on the head. Sounds Fleetwood Mac-ish. Or Tom Petty, perhaps. Exactly, David. See, watch this. Dreams from Fleetwood Mac. You know, players only love you when they're playing. That song, Dreams by Fleetwood Mac. Fire it up on YouTube or Spotify or wherever you listen to your music at. And it sounds like they're actually playing an open high E in that mix, but you could just play an F bar chord to a G bar chord. But if you got that open high E, and keep the high E ringing when you play the G, and I'm just playing an F chord, F major 7. And the reason why it sounds Lydian is because it's 2 major chords a whole step apart. Think about this, all right? If we're in the key of C major, F is the 4 chord. That's always the 4 chord in every major scale is major. And then I'm moving up a whole step to the 5 chord. The 5 chord is also a major chord. So guess what? The 5 mode, the 5th mode, Mixolydian, that has a major sound as well. We're going to get into that in a few weeks. Okay, so what I want to do is these songs I'm going to show you an example of, they all start with a major chord, and then the second chord is another major chord, a whole step higher. And then they just pivot back and forth. Okay, the Dreams from Fleetwood Mac, it's F to G. The G chord, even though I'm not playing it the way I showed you in my little invention, okay, like that, they just move the F up, F shape up to the G, because the G has the B note in it. That's the sharp 4 for Lydian. Okay, another good example. Here Comes My Girl, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Okay, they play an A major chord, then they take the 1 finger A chord, just move it up to the 4th fret, but keep the 5th string in the bass. Hear that? There's your Lydian. And then they go back to A, but they actually play a different inversion. Then back to the B. Something to that effect, okay? Here's another cool one. If you're more of a shredder type of guitar player, Joe Satriani. He does Lydian a lot. Steve Vai does too. Check out Joe Satriani's Flying in a Blue Dream. He does a C chord, okay, just a cowboy chord, and then you move it up a whole step to, what's a whole step higher than D? I mean C? It's D, D major, C major, D major. Now, sounds kind of neat too when he plays the C up 2 frets. That's a D chord, but it has that open G string in it. It creates a little mystery, but that's not the sharp 4. What's the sharp 4? If we're in C Lydian for Flying in a Blue Dream, what's the sharp 4? Play your Lydian pattern that I gave you here, but move it back so that the root note, your red dot's the root, starts on a C, which is the 8th fret on string 6. Oops. Okay, the 4th note, sharp, in C Lydian is the F sharp note. Your D chord has the F sharp in it. Okay, so those are 3 songs where the rhythm guitar plays a major chord, and then the very next chord is up a whole step, and it's also major. And then back and forth, just 2 chords back and forth. Okay, here's a fun one. The Simpsons, that cartoon theme that's big here in the United States, the theme to that is Lydian. Kind of like that. There's more to it, but that's the idea. You got, starts with the root. It's a C Lydian. Sharp 4 to 5. Then it does the idea right away to the root, the 3rd, the major 3rd, the sharp 4, up to the 6th, back to the 5th. And then the last note there, that one goes out of key, but it's all right. Danny Elfman's the guy that wrote that. He's very creative songwriter and very prolific. He writes a bunch of stuff. But you can also go out of key too, eventually. But the first step, folks, is learning how to play in key. All right. So if you can't just play in key, and you can do a lot of stuff that's in key. All right. You don't have to start experimenting with the outside notes until you're ready for it. But that's the idea right there. The Simpsons theme is another Lydian sounding one. Okay. Now let's explore the 3-note per string version of Lydian. That's the next diagram I got right here. And again, this one looks a lot like, well, not exactly, but it's 3 notes per string starting from the F. All right. It kind of looks like the Ionian one we did several weeks when we first started. Okay. The only difference is the 4th degree. If I play F major, 1, 2, 3, 4, do, re, mi, sharp the 4th. Hear that little magic note there? Here's the sharp 4 again. Okay, so that's some really cool sounds to it if you just kind of explore it and try to see where those sharp 4s are. There's 3 of them. I'm sorry, there's 3 of them in that 3-note per string pattern. There's one. Oopsie. There's one. There's another. Then the highest note is a sharp 4. And I always thought this sounds cool too. If we do it an octave lower, instead of starting at the 13th fret, play that pattern starting at the 1st fret. If you got a big finger stretch, this is good. If not, don't worry about it. Don't hurt your hand if you can't do this, but it would go frets 1, 3, 5, then 2, 3, 5, 2, 3, 5, 2, 4, 5, frets 3, 5, 6, 3, 5, 7. And then I can also, from that sharp 4, you know that the 5 is always 1 fret. These are all off the F chord, okay? So here's a little F triad. Playing 6 on the 2nd string, then 5, 8 on the 1st string, and then I duck back to the sharp 4, the 7th fret. And we talked about ear training. This is good too, to listen to the scale as you're playing it and listen to those magic notes and how they sound over the chord, okay? And also, so you can see what notes in this scale pattern are in the chord. Well, that's why I drew the bar chord down here. You probably will never play a bar chord past the 12th fret, but I just did it for diagram purposes. You'll see that all these notes, if you just scoot them up here, they fit right in there. You see the root note, and then the 5th degree, the root again, the major 3rd, the 5th, and then the root. You can see they're all right there from that pattern. Okay, those are your good notes to land on, and they're going to sound good because they're in the primary chord. Okay, now let's try this for a sec here. I got a few minutes left with everybody. Let me get the backing track going. So, another way. Let's finish our backing track idea here. If you're doing F to G over F, way to do F Lydian rhythm. Another way is to play your F bar chord on the 8th fret with the A form, and then keeping the F in the bass, we're going to move the triad strings 4, 3, and 2 up a whole step to the 12th fret. There's your G chord. So I'm going to try to do that. If you got a good pinky, you can just bar it. Hear that sound? That's very Lydian sound. That. Now, for my backing track, folks, I'm going to be shifting gears just slightly here. I'm going to put it in the key of E Lydian. So what I'm going to do is move those 2 patterns that we just talked about here. I'm going to just move them back 1 fret because we're in F right now. So I'm going to just scoot them back a fret, and that's where I'm going to play them at. And I know the whole fretboard. So once I move them back a fret, I might start exploring other areas, but it's still the same notes. Just, I know where all the notes are. I know the other patterns. These are just, let me refresh too. These are just one of many ways to play a Lydian pattern. Okay. This top one is using the cage form. There's 5 patterns in the cage system. We've got some good lessons on guitar tricks on this. Okay. With the cage patterns. The cage patterns are a lot easier to do for people just starting out or folks with smaller hands because you don't have to stretch that far. They're very compact and you can play in 1 finger per fret. The 3 notes per string patterns, though, require a little bit of a finger stretch. As you can see, when I do the one down on the 6th string for Lydian, I've got to stretch from 1 to 5. A lot of folks might not be able to stretch that far. So, maybe you can up higher, then just do them up higher, and when you're down low, just don't worry about playing that 6th string. Do where you're comfortable at, okay? You don't have to play the entire pattern either. You could just play parts of it as long as you're playing it in the right spot, okay? But the deal is with the 3 notes per string is there's 7 patterns, not 5. So the cage system is a little more compact and there's only 5 patterns. The same notes, if you do them 3 notes per string, you're actually going to have 7 different patterns because what we're doing is doing a 3 note per string pattern off of each of the 7 notes in the major scale. Remember, there's 7 notes in the major scale. There's a mode built off of each one of them. So there's 7 modes. So we can also build a 3-note per string scale pattern off of each note in the major scale. And that's where you get these patterns here. So you've got a little more stretch to do with the 3 notes, and you've got to do a little more memorization because there's 7 patterns, not 5. Okay. But the benefit is that every string is going to have 3 notes. And if you're into working on your picking and getting your picking quicker, a lot of the fast stuff guitar players play, shreddy wise, is 3 notes per string. I've gone over that the last bunch of weeks. Randy Rhoads does a lot of 3 note per string. Ed Van Halen does. Many players. Yngwie Malmsteen does. A lot of the shredders. Paul Gilbert, John Petrucci. Many guys, many players, and ladies too. There's a lot of great female shredders out there too. The cage pattern ones, though, are they work a little better with the bluesier stuff. Okay. And you don't have as many patterns, but because they're not 3 notes per string, you're always going to have one string somewhere in the pattern that's only got 2 notes. And one of the cage patterns has 2 strings with just 2 notes. So that kind of messes up your picking. If you're working on your picking, down, up, down, up, down, up, alternate picking, that's the most basic, fundamental picking pattern, picking system to use. And I really recommend everyone to get that down first, because if you start working on sweep picking, economy picking, these other more advanced picking, and you don't have your alternate picking down, you're probably going to hit some roadblocks in the future in your playing where you just can't play something because it's too hard, or maybe you can't play it as fast for whatever reason. It's probably because your picking technique is not there. So working on alternate picking is super important to get, every note is alternate pick. Okay, it's just to get going real quick. That's the best way. It's just alternate without stopping first. Later on, we can explore some economy and sweep picking and hybrid picking too. Okay, so when you're 3 notes per string, every string would be down, up, down, or up, down, up. But then with the 2 notes on a string, that instead of going down, up, down, up, the next one would just be like down, up, then down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Okay. So it's almost like going over a little speed bump. It doesn't stop you, but sometimes it's a bump. It's an area where it sounds like something changed a little bit. So anyway, work on your alternate picking. Now I moved everything from my backing track. I'm just playing an E chord because I want to have that pedal tone of the E. Okay. And then to make it sound Lydian, I'm going to move the E major chord up a whole step. This is real easy, folks. This is something everybody can do. Just move E up 2 frets. Okay. Oh, here's another one. What's that Rush song? Alex Lifeson and Rush, he does a lot of open strings on the top. He gets a very Lydian sound. That's from their song Xanadu. It's E major to an F sharp major, but he's got the open strings ringing too. It gives it a nice airy sound. Zach Lee's saying E Lydian, key of B. Good point, Zach. Yes. If we're doing E Lydian, that's the 4th note in the B major scale. Exactly. Good job. I'm glad to hear some of the folks are on the ball with the theory and just understanding it. Okay. We don't have to go deep into the theory, just getting our feet wet, our toes wet in the water. Okay. So that's exactly right, Zach. Good job, man. Okay. So I'm doing E and just moving it up a whole step. But see, I keep the E string ringing in the bass. And then the F sharp chord, that has the sharp 4 built into it. The sharp 4 in Lydian is your A sharp note. That's the major 3rd of the F sharp chord, the 3rd string, 3rd fret. Okay, another way I'm going to do it on my backing track is I play an E bar chord on the 7th fret with the A form. Then I got the E string ringing, and I just move it up 2 frets to F sharp major. And I keep the E ringing, okay? So let's fire this up here for a sec. See if you can hear this. And I just found a drum loop. I got a drum loop that's keeping the beat. So I don't know if you could hear, let me stop that for a sec. So if you could hear the backing track underneath my soloing, that's kind of the idea, is just trying to hear those sharp 4s. So if you played an E major triad over that, a little arpeggio right there, like 3rd string, 4th fret, 2nd string, 5th fret, 1st string, 4th fret again, 7th fret on the 1st string, there's your E major triad. And then play the sharp 4 right behind it. And then during that sharp 4, the backing track goes up to F sharp. After your sharp 4, you can reach your pinky over and play the 7th fret 2nd string. That's the F sharp note to go with this chord. See how that works? Let's hear how that sounds for a second. You get the idea. Real quick, though, I see David's got a comment. When you move the chords up and down, were you moving the cage pattern up and down? I'm thinking not, just changing root notes. Well, what I was doing on that, David, is I'm just following the chords. So, and that's why it sounds pretty good, because I'm following the chords. See, it's more than just playing the scale up and down. You need to listen to the chords and try to pick out notes of them. Good way to do that, just make up an exercise where you play the arpeggio for each chord. Then it's kind of simple when you do this, folks. If you got an E major to F sharp, all you got to do is worry about the triad shapes for E major and F sharp major. And since they're both major, they're both the same shape. The F sharp is just the same shape, 2 frets higher. So what I was doing, David, is I was playing an E major triad and just moving it up 2 frets. When the band played F sharp, then I went to the next inversion of E major, sorry. And then up 2 frets for F sharp. Then the next inversion, which is just a little D shape, but I just hold it. And then move it up 2 frets. And then I go into just something else. E major, kind of the triads a la California, Hotel California. Into that song, you know how they do the little. Well, I'm doing that, but with the arpeggio triad shapes for this song, E major. I forgot what I was doing, but. Or you could tap them. And then the B would be could do that. But I'm just doing the triads of the chords. See that? See how that sounds, folks? It's still playing in E Lydian. I'm taking the patterns we did here. These are all in F, folks, but I raised them, or I actually lowered them a fret. So it's the exact same patterns. And I just know where all the notes are on the fretboard. That just comes with practice, folks. You don't need to be able to do all this. But if I just camp out in this one territory and play, you can do some neat stuff. All right? Let's duck it back here. We'll try one more time. You know how that sounds? I'm just playing. I'm just playing the. Yeah, actually, I was playing starting on pattern, the cage pattern, and then I kind of combine it with the 3-note per string pattern. So I go. I start out right going. So on the 5th string, I'm going the low note, the high note, and then the middle note. And I do that. You could do that on every string. It sounds kind of neat over the track. Try it. Listen to this. Because those notes that I stop on, root note, that's the sharp 4. That's the major 7, which isn't in the chord, but it certainly sounds kind of cool. There's the major 3rd of E. That's the chord tone. That's the 6th degree in the key of E. And then I end on the 2nd. All right? They sound kind of cool over it. All right? And how about if we go down? Instead of playing the scale in order, that kind of thing going. Why don't I go? Or, how about that? High note, low note, middle note. I'm going to be playing the 3-note per string pattern and working my way down. Let's see what that sounds like. Okay, not getting fancy, but just taking a pattern and moving it through the scale. That's a really cool way of playing your scales too, is make up a pattern on one string and just do that through the whole scale. All right? That's what a lot of shredders do. They'll go like, that's my pattern. I'll just do that in every string. Oopsie. Okay, feel free to, if you're finger tapping the same pattern. Just moving it up and down. Okay, a couple comments here. We're almost done. Yeah, David, so that was what I was doing there. Yep. Second Chance Band. Cool. Appreciate it, Marianne. Well, have a great week, and then we'll catch you next Wednesday. Good, good. Russ saying, do you suggest starting with the root note for practice? Well, just to get the sound of it, Russ, absolutely. But when you're playing over a backing track, the backing track's holding the foundation for you. You can really start on any, but just come up with ideas that sound good. The trick is, though, Russ, is to end whatever you play, try to end on something that sounds good. And just experiment. You know, if you know some theory, you can use that to your advantage. If you don't know theory, then start getting your ears sharp where maybe you don't understand what the note is you're playing over that chord, but you certainly can tell whether it sounds good or not. That counts. Okay. A lot of really good players that don't know all the theory, but they got a great musical sense. And that just comes from they play their instrument a lot and they get really good at it. And I've got a lot of friends that don't know much theory, but they can play really good. And, you know, in the end of the day, that's all that matters, right? Is that when you play, people like what they hear and they're happy hearing it. Russ saying, do you suggest starting with the root note? All right, that's what we just talked about. And Dave saying, I think I would like a lesson on how to stay in the mode while changing chords. Yeah, well, that's what I'm doing right here, Davey. Every 2 weeks. Next week, we're going to do week 2 of Lydian. So we're going to do more of this, but we're going to focus on playing it on one string. And then what I'll do probably by next week is, since this is all B Lydian, because I'm using the open B string to play as a drone while we play B Lydian on one string, I'm going to create a backing track in B Lydian. Okay. And all I'm going to do is B major chord. And then what's a whole step higher? C sharp major. I'm just going to go those 2 chords back and forth with a drum loop that I have. And I'll just record that and play it. Doesn't have to be a, high fidelity practice track. You can just make it your phone yourself. I just recorded it on my phone 10 minutes before our lesson, that backing track. Okay. So it doesn't have to be great. It just has to sound good and steady, and use a metronome when you play your backing track, or find some drum loops or create a drum loop. A lot of our audio interfaces we have on our computers, GarageBand, Cubase, Logic, Pro Tools, you can probably have drum loops in those or create some drum loops real easily. So good deal, folks. David, we can definitely do some more on that chord changing while staying, but you got to stay in the mode though. You can't start playing other notes because then we're not in the mode anymore. King 50, appreciate it, man. Yep, we'll see you next week. Russ, all right, cool. Richard, right on. Zane, Steve, cool. Danny, Truchas, yeah. Oh, the blues lead class. That's right. You're in that too. Cool. Right on, Truchas. All right. Well, enjoy the folks that I've got in my blues boot camp class with Guitar Tricks tomorrow night. I'll see you then. If you're not a Guitar Tricks member, we've encouraged you to sign up, because we're also starting up this series on boot camps where we're focusing on one subject for 4 weeks. I know Mike, one of the other instructors on Guitar Tricks, is doing, I believe, a finger picking one. I'm pretty sure it's what he's doing. And I've got some other ones coming down the pipeline too, and Mike does as well. So that's something extra that we can help the students with. Anyway, we'll see everyone next Wednesday, and in a couple students that I've got in the boot camp tomorrow night. I'll see you then, and everyone else, have a great week, and I'll meet you next week or sooner or later. All right, everyone, peace. Have a good one. Keep them fingers flying. Keep practicing. All right, see ya. Bye.